Hello, welcome to another episode of Know Your Minnow, a series in which we take a look at some of the lowlier sides international football has to offer in the global game. In this installment, we will take a look at the landlocked nation in Central Asia known as Bhutan, represented here by the flag of Bhutan. There is a silver dragon, one of the few flags in the world to have a dragon on it. I cannot draw a dragon, so you just see the yellow and orange colors of the banner behind it. So, Bhutan. Well, first, as always, facts about the country itself. It is located in the eastern Himalayas. It's one of the few landlocked nations in Asia that still retain a kingdom up until this day. The overall population of Bhutan is 742,000 inhabitants, and its capital is Thimphu. Bhutan lies on the ancient Silk Road, which was a trade route for goods and spices and a major avenue of commerce in the ancient world. Bhutan lays squarely in the middle of that, actually. But Bhutan has never been colonized in its entire history. It's one of the few independent nations in Asia to have never experienced the grip of imperialism, colonialism. The national animal is the takin, which is sort of a goat-calf hybrid. It's a hooved cattle-type animal. Another animal that is endemic to the Himalayan region where Bhutan is the Himalayan marmot, kind of a groundhog gopher type of animal. Bhutanese red rice is the country's most widely distributed and exported agricultural product, and indeed it's part of one of the national dishes of Bhutan, which is steamed red rice with ginger chicken and chopped spinach. Sounds delicious. The two major religions of Bhutan are Vajrayana Buddhism and Hinduism. Bhutan is one of just 2 or 3 dozen nations in the world where football is not the main sport. The national sport of Bhutan is archery, and Bhutanese archery is its own sport because it has different rules from that of archery recognized through the International Olympic Committee. Some famous Bhutanese people include Jetsun Pema, who is the queen consort to the current king of Bhutan, Khyentse Norbu, a filmmaker, actor, and writer, and Khardu Wangchuk, a former famous prime minister of the country. Bhutan is a constitutional monarchy, although it does have strains of democracy in that elections were first held in the country 20 years ago. I believe Bhutan, along with Thailand, is a monarchy. I'm not sure how many other Asian countries still have a reigning monarch, but you may have seen Bhutan in my Monarch Cup last summer, just before the World Cup. Go check that out. That's fantasy football tournament number 45, off the top of my head. Moving on to the national team of Bhutan, now that we got a little bit of familiarity with the small nation itself. Well, the nickname of the Bhutanese men's national team is the Dragon Boys. Yes, boys not being just a, fill-in-the-blank boys, name for a national team like we see with some Caribbean nations, or like, Sugar Boys, Spice Boys, and then for South Africa, as we know, Bafana, the boys. Bhutan, the Dragon Boys, most appropriately because of the sigil on their country's flag, and the dragon being an integral part of Bhutanese culture, as well as a national symbol. The coach of the current Bhutanese national team is Jigme Tolbeg Shering. The top scorer in Bhutanese footballing history for the national side is Chencho Gyeltsen, who has scored 36 times for his country throughout his career. He's also the most cap-tied player as well. the player with the most caps in Bhutan national team history. The home ground is Changlimithang Stadium in Thimphu, and it has the distinction of having sort of a Buddhist temple architecture around it in the stands. It's one of the more scenic uh, national stadiums in the world, honestly. And it was the site of the famous 2002 friendly played between Bhutan and Montserrat in the film documentary The Other Final, which at the time was between Bhutan and Montserrat, the two teams lowest ranked in the world by the FIFA rankings. Very interesting, low budget documentary. Check it out. It's pretty cool. Some notable players on the current Bhutanese team include Lungtuk Dawa, Karun Gurung, and Shering Dorji. Most of the squad is domestic base, playing in clubs like Thimphu FC and Transport United. But a couple of players play abroad in the Indian League, most notably in clubs like Naroka and Kerala. The 2018 World Cup qualifying phase was the first time Bhutan had ever entered to compete for a spot in the World Cup, believe it or not. Despite having a national team for several years prior, Bhutan never attempted to qualify for a World Cup until Russia 2018. And on their first attempt, they made it past the first round after they picked up a quite, really, for their standards, historic two-legged victory over Sri Lanka by an aggregate score of 3-1 when they reached the next round to play among the Asian giants in the AFC, being Japan, Australia, China, etc. This time around, Bhutan were eliminated in the first round of Asian World Cup qualifying for 2022 Qatar. They were victorious in Thimphu at the Changmilitang, 1-0, but they lost the second leg in a 5-0 thumping by Guam, the overseas United States territory. So Bhutan have already failed to qualify for the 2022 World Cup. Still a minnow in Asia and in the world, but investment in the country, especially in the aftermath of the documentary in 2002, The Other Final, which brought more international attention to the Bhutanese team, has resulted in an outpouring of funds and a greater investment in developing the sport in the country, although it does have quite a long way to go. So that wraps it up for Bhutan. Facts about the country itself, an insight to its culture and history, as well as the national team. Leave a comment below, like, subscribe. I hope to see you guys soon, God willing. Until then, as always, peace.